Hello, everybody. We're here today with longtime Riverside resident Quincy Burlington, who's hi, Quincy. He's going to talk to us about his life and times in Riverside, and let's get down to it. So, Mr. Burlington, how did you come to live in Riverside?
Well, I was born here. I lived here for 78 years. I'm 77 years old. I'm 77, but I say 78 because I was in my mother's womb for a year, 9 months, felt like a year, warm in there. She was walking around the town, so I count that as a year. And, that's a game Riversiders like to play, tit for tat. How long have you lived here? So when they tit, I tat, 78 years.
Very good. And what part of town do you live in?
I live on Burlington over there, the only straight street in town. There's another straight street, Quincy. That was the street I was born on. Ended up on Burlington. There's no relation to the name whatsoever.
That was my next question. Is that, did they name the street after your family?
Total coincidence.
And the Quincy part as well?
Total coincidence.
Well, that's something, isn't it?
Total coincidence.
Is that? Well, that's
right?
A coincidence.
I'll be damned. My mother was proficient.
How about that? And in your 77 plus years in Riverside.
That's right.
How have you seen Riverside change?
Oh boy, howdy, it's changed, let me tell you. You used to have women wearing dresses that went down to their ankles. Now they've got dresses going up to their necks. I mean, it's unbelievable, the things that you see in this town. The automobiles have changed. When I was young, we didn't have automobiles, we ran everywhere. That's how you got to the school. When I went to RB, Riverside Brookfield, home of the Bullfrogs.
Home of the what?
The Bullfrogs. Once a bullfrog, always a bullfrog.
Oh, okay.
And like I said, we ran everywhere. We were in great condition. That's why I'm in top physical form now in my 77 years of age. And boy, those times were tough. We had to come down here. They had this horse well in the center of town here in Guthrie Park. Yes. And that's where we had it. That was our only water source. We had to go there with buckets and go and take a bucket of water and run it home to Ma. And then they built the water tower. Then we had to run there, and then they put pipes in, which really helped. So we didn't have to run as much anymore, because boy, I was sick of that.
That's a lot of running.
Yeah, a lot of running around here.
Well, what would you say was the best thing to happen in Riverside? I mean, besides the water tower, or besides not having to run for water anymore, besides the pipes.
When you put in the benches, I like benches.
Benches are good.
Who doesn't like sitting, right?
And that's, since you've been here, that's one of the best things to happen in Riverside?
Yeah. I mean, they paved the roads, so I guess that's a plus. But I really like the benches, I guess paved roads are nice. But they put in some parks and some swing sets. My kids jerked around on those for a while when they were young. That was nice. But I like the benches. I like sitting. Before, all the people just stood around. They looked like they had nothing to do. Now at least we have somewhere to sit on. I have a bench in town named after me.
Is that a coincidence, or is that just?
Well, it's on Long Common in the park, so nowhere near Quincy or Burlington, which I was not happy about, but that's another story. And I sit there from time to time. The birds do a number on it, and I got to really keep it up, but it's a nice view. So, best thing, benches, paved roads, second, water, third, if we're rating.
You mentioned the paved roads. Are you still driving?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's how I get around. That's how I see the grandkids. I see them once a year. That's how I see my kids. I see them twice a year. Driving is freedom. Have I had a few dingers in the past in my late age? Sure, you could ask the chief. He's well aware of my conditions. Some of these alleyways here are just really tight, you just get in there and you're back and forth and back and forth. It's like unbelievable.
You realize there are very few alleys in Riverside.
Oh, yeah, but I found the one. I found the one over there on, what is that, Forest there, I think. And sometimes I just like to go there. I'm out of the way, but I get stuck all the time. They really got to just get rid of them.
Is that, so speaking of which, what else would you change about Riverside?
What would I change about Riverside? Well, there are too many old people, you know, and that really drags me down, makes me feel my age, which I don't feel my age. You know?
77.
And years, and I feel young, but then I see these old people around here sitting on benches, and boy, they are just the worst. If we could just do away with them, this would just be a great place. Like the old days, really.
A lot of more running.
Running, yeah, that would be good too.
And what, in your many years as a Riverside resident, what would one of your favorite Riverside memories?
Well, I'd have to say 1974, 2 years before the centennial, or bicentennial, I don't know, it's been thousands of years we've been in this country. I ran the 4K. It was a 4K at that point, not a 5K. They didn't need the extra K. And I finished in under 9 minutes.
Well, that's tremendous.
That was the best day of my life, closely followed by the birth of my 3 children.
Well,
Triplets, all at once. They all came out at once.
so all that running as a child helped you out in '74 at the 4K.
Yep. And it helped me chasing after my kids too, because boy, they were a handful. And they still are. They're living off of my dime.
But throughout Riverside, I mean, not since you've been here, but just you know the history. Aren't you? You're like the unofficial Riverside historian, I know.
Yeah, I ran the Olmsted Society for years, and then they pushed me out. It was a coup. They didn't like what I was doing. I was going into people's yards and writing up reports. If they had flowers that were not in the original plan, I told them so, and I'd pull them out. And I still pull out the flowers because that wasn't in his plan, all right? So I am the unofficial Riverside historian. They will not acknowledge it, though. They won't tell the truth. It's a conspiracy. Yeah, they're against me.
But throughout the history of Riverside, what would you say Riverside's shining moment was throughout its?
Well, I'm told there was a day in 1910 that was just a beautiful day. Sun was shining everywhere. Everything looked great. They had just had this train go through town, and it had a car full of grease. It was carrying grease, and it hit the train station, and it was a big pileup, and the grease went everywhere, and the town was shiny as could be.
I don't think you quite get the question.
no, I get it.
Okay, all right.
That was the best
That
day.
was the shining moment.
That was the shining
Well,
moment.
I get it. Okay. And then all the businesses that have come and gone in Riverside, did you have any favorites or a favorite restaurant or a store or
Sure.
or maybe do you still have one?
Yeah. Well, I go into Aunt Diana's every once in a while and get myself a chocolate, dipped chocolate banana, because it reminds me of my childhood. I also like to eat the popcorn there, but there was this great place called Daryl's. It was a diner, like a kitchenette on the corner, and the guy just made sandwiches. And I found out later it wasn't a business. This guy just liked making sandwiches out of his house, and I just went there I never knew. You would have never known. You never knew.
There was no Daryl's Diner sign or anything? It was
No, it was just Daryl's house.
Daryl's house.
Yeah, and his door was open one day, and he was making sandwiches, and I went back for years, and then one day he stopped making sandwiches. And so that was that.
There are a lot of famous people who have lived in Riverside. Did you happen to meet any of those people?
Yeah, I knew Freddie Olmsted Jr., and he was a miserable son of a gun. He hated living in his father's shadow, and big shadow. And he'd be out the golf club all the time, drinking himself to sleep and scribbling on napkins. He was just trying to come up with a better planned community than his father. You know, his father drew on a cocktail napkin, and that was the town. And now he's lauded as a genius. But Freddie Olmsted Jr., he just could never do it. Tons of scribbles on napkins, not one town out of any of them.
Was his middle name Law as well?
No, it was order, as you can imagine.
I can imagine, yes. What's, as far as changing, what is happening in Riverside? You mentioned the paving the roads and the pipes for the water and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Would you put a stoplight, street light in the middle of town here, a red light?
Funny you should mention that. My father, Stanley Burlington, for 1942, one year they thought it would be a good idea to have a human traffic light. So he was on a pedestal in the center of Burlington Long Common there, and he had a whistle. I got to shine it every day before he went to work. He'd call me in and say, "Quincy, get over here and shine my damn whistle." And you better believe your butt that whistle was shined every day in 1942. But anyway, he would stand there in the center of town. You see, he was colorblind, so he couldn't join the war. That was why he was still around. So he was the only, and he was like 6'5". So they said, "We'll take the tallest guy, the tallest jamoke in town, and stick him on a pedestal." And he had a sleeve that was red, and he had a sleeve that was green, and he'd just do this. And it didn't work out. And no, a car at night, he didn't have any reflective things on back then. They didn't have reflections back then, I guess. And a car just went, and that was the end of my dad. And we buried him with the whistle, and it was shiny. And so they really never talked about stoplights in the center of town after that tragedy. But there's actually a rock somewhere over here with his name on it. That I just carved his name in the rock, but I thought it was a fitting monument.
I'm sorry to hear it. And
whatever.
The whistle went with your dad?
Yeah, we put it in the ground with him.
Oh, very nice. The nice.
Memento? Yeah, I'd love to have it now, but it's in the ground, and I really can't dig, so never getting that back.
What else in Riverside entertains you?
Well, there are some ducks as of late down by Swan Pond. When they took the dam out, you had all these ducks came down from lions, I guess, which, we weren't too crazy about. We don't like outsiders here, and that goes for the wildlife as well. But these ducks are all right. And I go down there and feed them, and they run around and then nip at my ankles, and I give them day-old bread and stuff like that. They're pretty entertaining. I guess the car shows are nice in town. My day, those were just cars, right?
And now what is it?
Now they're antiques. So I guess that makes me an antique. I guess millennials have decided that I'm an antique. But I do like the car shows. Sometimes I like to get in and ride around in them and take them for a ride. They feel nice, and yeah.
When you visit your kids and your grandkids once or twice a year, what kind of car do you drive?
I drive a Lincoln, a Continental, big boat, and but I had to cut every year I get older. I cut a few inches off the front and the back. Like I said, when I go in the alley and I'm going back and forth because I get jammed up back there, it gets shorter every year, that car, but still runs. It's a beaut. And I drive out to Oswego to see the grandkids once a year, and then I see the kids twice a year. You might wonder where the grandkids are the second time. I make sure they lock them away in the garage because they're a handful, and that's all I want to see of them, one day a year.
All right. Is there, besides seeing the grandkids, are there any other annual event in Riverside that you enjoy?
Sure, I like when they put the flags up. I was in the service. I went in 52 after I worked on I left home because my father back in 41 said, you know, Quincy, you better get the hell out of my house and get a job. And so it took me about 10 years to do that, but I went and worked on a sod farm, which, contrary to popular belief, is not very exciting work. Not at all, but you know, as they say, the grass is not greener on the other side of the sod farm, because I joined the service, and there I tested dog urine, the bomb-sniffing dogs. So when they would go and drink the water supply, then I would have to collect the urine and test it for any foreign contaminants or poison and report back, so to tell us if the water supply was clean. And I tell you, there's nothing worse than waking up at 5 a.m., 95 degrees, 100% humidity, in a Korean rice paddy, running after a German Shepherd with a tin cup. And let me tell you, that's why I moved back to Riverside after the service, because it's a beautiful place to live. Started a landscaping business, because God just likes to toy with me. So now not only do I cut grass, but I pick up after the dogs as well. So everything kind of came together.
And you were the first person they referred to as the sod father. Is that true?
That is right, and I have a pending legal battle with the Chicago White Sox. I can't talk much about it. It's been going on for 25 years. I pretty much just send letters and stand outside of the park and knock on the wall until they give me some money for stealing the term that I started.
I hope things work out for you on that end.
Well, it's a long fight, but it's a good fight.
So at that point, were you ever mentioned in the local papers? And like,
Sure. Yeah, I was in the local papers. You see, there was this guy that lived over on Bartram over there. His name was Rodolfo Laspari. And he was a great organ player. They actually modeled a Phantom of the Opera after this guy. Ooh, a face only a mother could love. And so he taught me how to play piano, as he would call it, the piano to the masses. But he, for some reason, just called it piano. And so I would give recitals every so often here in the town hall with this old beauty here, Iverson Pond, great piano, and I would give recitals, and I was always in the paper, Quincy giving another recital. And the first few performances, everybody came because I think they thought Quincy Jones was here, but he wasn't, it was me. But we had a steady stream of about 15 attendees straight through the 80s, so MTV kind of put me out of business, but that's another story.
And it's true that the Steinway pianos, they stole all the info from Iverson Pond.
Yeah, Iverson Ponds, they make out of sturdy oak, pianos out of sturdy oak. The problem being that the keys were also made out of oak, so they kind of rotted away, because you see, I need a lot of water when I play, and I sweat profusely. And so it would drop on the keys and they would rot. And so they're not looking too good, this old beauty, but she still can crank out quite a tune.
Very good. Very good. So when you were growing up here, were there, pardon me, who was the oldest person you recall as a child, oldest Riversider, that when, like, did you have a neighbor who had been here since they were born?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we had Jim Spertoli, was this old Civil War vet. He was like 108, and he fought the Battle of Swan Pond. It was a one-man battle, and he lived over on Northgate there in a shack. And he was just a miserable son of a. Of course, if you fought a one-man battle in Swan Pond, I guess you too would be pissed off all the time. But yeah, he was okay in my book.
And he was nice to the kids in the neighborhood, or he was just?
No, he would threaten them with his musket. He loved doing that. Yeah, he liked taking the bayonet out and just running after him and chasing him off his lawn. But every June 10th, anniversary of the Battle of Swan Pond and the Civil War, he would go out down there and reenact it, and some people would come and watch, and just say, there's old Jim,
And what was his name again?
Jim Spertoli, and there's old Jim just running around with his just ramming into trees, but God love him, he was a true American hero, Riverside hero.
So Riverside is referred to, and even on the signs in town, is referred to as the village in a forest.
Right.
Does that hold true? Do you believe that?
Well, we are in a forest, Steve, so I guess they got that observation correct. And we are by the side of a river, so not rocket science here when they named stuff back then. I'm not saying any of them were geniuses. Oh, look, there's a river, we're on the side, Riverside. Yeah, it's a village in a forest. It's nice, it's shady. You know, I always say it's kind of a small village. If you cut the trees down, the village would look a lot bigger. But, you know, it's fine. It's a nice name, I guess. I don't know what else you would call it. I don't know.
And a few more things. I know it's getting on. It's probably past your nap time, but
Well, it is 10 a.m., so yes. Okay. I've already had my first nap, and I am due for another one anytime now.
and I know you grew up in the village here, but did you ever get lost in here? I mean, when you were younger, when you were running around, did you run to the other side of town where you might have gotten lost, or do you find people?
Well, let me tell you something. Somebody better be driving me home after this, because car's in the shop, and I don't know how the hell to get around this town. I've been getting lost for 77 years. 78, my mom used to get lost, so when I was in her womb, I was lost too. I guess that's where it started. I mean, I'll end up in any random person's house, and the people here are so accommodating.
Like Daryl.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, that's probably how that's right. Now it's coming back to me. I just thought it was my house, and it was him in the house making sandwiches. But, yeah, that's how you meet people, right? You just walk into their house and go in their bed and take a nap. And nicest people in town, too. And nice bedding, comfortable. People have great sheets.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, did you ever have to sleep in the scout cabin out by the?
Oh, yeah, there were times where Doris, my wife of 50 years, she would, I'd come home late from a piano recital, and I might have been out celebrating, and she would say, nope, get out of here, you're not staying here. She'd kick me out, and if it was the winter, everybody had their doors locked, so I couldn't go in their houses, so the scout cabin was always open, and I'd sleep there for a week or two, and kick the scouts out, and make it my home. It's a beautiful place, and if you look next to the fireplace in the scout cabin, by the way, great idea, put a fireplace in a wood hut. Many a fire, but if you look next to the fireplace, there's my initials I carved into QB.
I'm sure a lot of your neighbors have come and gone since you've lived here, or.
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you something, Steve. They were great folks, but I never went to their funerals. You know why? They're not coming to mine. Never go to a funeral because they're never coming to mine. But we had some great neighbors. We had Stanley and Bernice next door. They had a son who was a little out there, but that was all right. They out back, and it never bothered him. But Stanley and Bernice were nice folks. They were Polish, Bohemian. You know, there used to be a lot of Bohemians here in town. They kind of all left. But the food that Bernice would cook was second to none. It was really dumplings, cabbage rolls, just the best. But boy, you had to keep a wide distance from my house the next day, let me tell you.
Well, is there time is drawn to a close here? Is there anything you'd like to tell the fellow Riversiders about how they can live to be a ripe old age as you are, or
Yeah.
what can you tell us?
Don't drink the water out of the river. That's what I can tell you. I drank some water about 5 days ago, and I'm lucky I made it here today, because boy, I was laid up and bent over in the bathroom, and that water is not good. Drink it out of the bottled stuff, and then throw the bottle in the river too. Maybe it'll help the
Well, I don't think that's a good idea. They're trying to not have people throw plastic away.
Yeah, well, fads come and go, you know, so I don't know about recycling, if it's ever going to work or what, but, you know, don't drink the water in the river. That's the best advice, and you will live to a ripe old age of 77.
Or 8.
Right.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having us
Thank you.
in your home today.
You want me to play a little ditty on this thing?
That would be terrific.
Say that she still got it, this old thing.
Let's do it.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right. I didn't bring any music here, but let me just warm up here. Clear the throat. I won't sing for you. I'll just play. Here, why don't you hold this dirty old cane that I use to get around. Sometimes I like to just whisper to her, get her warmed up before I start tickling her. All right, you ready?
Let's go.